good! Welcome to the first lecture of today. In this lecture, we will focus on the spiritual messengers throughout history who brought a deeper truth to humanity. And these messengers, also known as sages or teachers, are of all ages and can be found all over the world. Examples of these messengers are the Buddha, who brought his teachings to India, and the sage Lao Tse in China. In the West, Pythagoras and Plato are well known to us, as are Jesus and Mohammed from the Middle East. But in America too, we find messengers such as Quetzalcoatl and Manco Capac. And these sages brought the message of wisdom in many ways, always adapted to the culture and the spirit of the age. And they did this by means of symbols, stories, poems, dialogues, and mystery plays, among other things. Always aimed at promoting peace, understanding, harmony, and universal brotherhood. All these messages have left an indelible mark on history. So much so that centuries later we still know them. And these messages are evidently still relevant today. The title of our lecture, The Stream of Wisdom and Compassion from the Cosmic Heart, suggests that these messengers of wisdom are not just an opinion, but there is a deeper source behind that wisdom. And this leads us to a number of questions, which we will explore in more depth in this lecture. So what is this message of wisdom that the messengers bring? Is it true that these messengers are similar? And for what reason are these messages brought to humanity? Who are the messengers? And where do they get their wisdom from? To answer these questions, we present you a number of teachings from different traditions and quotes from different messengers. We will examine to what extent they correspond and whether we can recognize them in our own world of experience. We begin with the first question. What is the message of wisdom that the messengers bring? And furthermore, we will also examine the deeper meaning behind it. Generally, we see that the messengers always present a number of essential ideas, core thoughts that lift our everyday thinking to a greater reality and a deeper understanding of life. In doing so, they invariably appeal to us to think about it independently, to examine whether the message resonates with what you think is right, just, and logical. And only then, after we have examined it ourselves and found that the idea satisfies our heart and mind, then can we accept it as true. And this is a process that must take place within ourselves, because real insights always come from within. The first important core idea that we find in all traditions is boundlessness. Plato calls this apeiron. Buddhists call it sunyata. And in the Popol Vuh from America, it is called the Great Sea of Space. And Lao Tse approaches this with Tao. And the Chaldean Kabbalists with Ein Sof. In Islam, this is Allah, regarded as the unnameable, and all-encompassing. What can be said about this? Well, that there is a principle, as H.P. Blavatsky calls it, boundless, unknowable, unchanging, and eternal. In the Upanishads, this is called Parabrahman, the supreme all, the ever-invisible spirit and soul of nature, unchanging and eternal, which cannot have any attributes. The boundless can never be grasped by our limited human minds. And yet, this principle is brought to us by the sages, for, although unknowable in its essence, it is the root of the one life, of which all beings are a part. And the Roman emperor and Stoic Marcus Aurelius tells us in this connection that the universe is one great living organism. And the core idea we can draw from these quotes is that there is a boundless life of which all beings are a part. In other words, the same one life beats in all beings. It is the essence of all things. Everything is alive. From one basic idea flow several related ideas, as the wise teach us. If there is a boundless unity, we cannot be outside of it. We must be part of it, and therefore carry it within ourselves. The Persian poet Rumi tells us, therefore, you are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in one drop. And the Chandogya Upanishad emphasizes Tat Tvam Asi. You are that. You are not separate from cosmic reality. You are that reality. You are essentially the boundless. The Greek philosopher Heraclitus teaches that man is a reflection of the entire cosmos. Everything that exists on the large scale is also present in each human being. In other words, being an expression, an inseparable part of the one cosmic life, every being carries all possibilities within itself. The key message here is that we are in essence a spiritual core or heart, and that this core of us is our link to the one universal life. H.P. Blavatsky calls the spiritual core of each being a spark of eternity or a monad. What happens with all entities? Will all entities stay the same within this unity? No. If we are one inseparable part of the boundless unity, we must have boundless opportunities of development in us, that we unfold from the inside outwards. Every being unfolds his potentials more and more, life after life, incarnation after incarnation. But there are large differences in developments. And that's why we can recognize a ladder of life in nature, from less developed to more developed beings. All beings develop gradually, psychically, from atomic being to human being to solar being, and all the intermediate steps between. Poetically speaking, We are pilgrims of eternity, who learn through the ages to express our deepest inner nature. And Rumi shows us this very vividly in the following poem. Behold, I died as a stone and rose as a plant. And by I, we mean that pilgrim of eternity, that spiritual core. I died as a plant and then took the course as an animal. I died as an animal and became a human being. Why then should I fear? Since by dying I cannot become less. Rumi then hints that this development continues to higher stages, which we will discuss later on in more detail. Now, can we recognize that inner development in ourselves? Yes, there is a deep thirst within us, from our deepest core, our hearts, to know more, to understand more. Our consciousness can expand. We can learn every day, during each incarnation, and we all can recognize that. Because if you look back at who you were 10 or 15 years ago, you will see that you now understand things that you could not grasp then. You respond differently to situations that arise. And when we realize this, we can consciously align ourselves to our inner core and open our daily consciousness minds for the flow of wisdom from our deepest inner self. By means of these basic ideas, the I.S.I.S showed us a greater reality. They point out that the most spiritual core within us is identical to the most spiritual core of the entire cosmos. And because this is the case for all beings, our core is therefore completely identical to the deepest core of all our fellow beings. So there is unity. We are not isolated, and no being can be missed. And therefore, it is illogical to disadvantage or fight each other. On the contrary, harmonious cooperation is the natural way. And as human beings, we have responsibility in this. Realizing this, we will deliberately strive to align our thinking to wisdom that flows from our own deepest inner being. So far, we have discussed three important core ideas that the messengers brought us throughout the ages. In summary, these are the boundless life, of which all beings are an inseparable part. And consequently, every being has boundless possibilities within themselves. And the keynote of all is cyclical, collaborative development. Anyone who reflects on these basic ideas will discover that the cosmos is made up of collaboration of beings who are all at different points on their inner path of development. And the cosmos is therefore layered. It consists of suggestive stages of development. Can we recognize this in practice? Within the enormous variety of characters we find in humanity, yes, we can. We already mentioned messengers such as Pythagoras, Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, Quetzalcoatl. who show much more understanding and vision than the average fellow human being. And without exception, they speak from their own experience. What they bring is not merely theory for them. They live entirely according to the principles they bring in all their thoughts and actions. And this is only possible because they have developed their spiritual abilities further than the average person. But yet, they are still human beings. And these messengers all say in their teachings, "Thus I have heard. What I offer is universal wisdom and not something I have devised myself. I pass on as purely as possible what I learned from my teachers, from even more universal beings." And they also said, "Each of you will one day be able to do even greater works than I am doing now." The messengers thus demonstrate the logic that there are beings who are still more developed than humans. Can we also recognize this in the myths and philosophies of antiquity? Let us explore this together. We see that the ancient Greeks, in their myths, speak of a series increasing higher developed being. First human, then heroes, then divine heroes or demigods, and finally gods. In Christianity, we find the scriptures of the Apostle Paul, who spoke of the many ranks of angels, archangels, principalities, powers, forces, and so on, a number of stages further. Buddhism also mentions a hierarchy of consciousness. There are Buddhas of different levels. And this is beautifully visualized in the magnificent Buddhist temple of the Borobudur. On its three highest circular plateaus are statues of Buddhas of successive levels of enlightenment. And significantly, at the highest level, at the central point of the whole temple, there is a stupa without a Buddha statue. And this refers to the indescribable source of wisdom, which therefore cannot be depicted. So in the cosmos, there are many levels of development, some further than humans and others less so. All beings in the cosmos work together and cannot exist without each other. The more advantaged beings offer guidance and inspiration to those who come after them on the long path of development. And they do that because these more advanced beings have already successfully completed the school of learning that the less advantaged beings are trying to follow, with greater or less difficulty. The older brothers give instructions to their younger brothers. To summarize what we have present for so far, we see that all messengers, in all times and everywhere, brought the same insights about life. Although it sometimes requires considerably study to understand the symbols and language of an ancient messenger, the same universal core message is always present. And we hope that this has given you a taste of the inner richness that lies behind these teachings. So isn't it plausible that there must be one source for that message? Now our next question is, what is that source? We saw that the cosmos is layered and consists of various levels or spheres of existence, from the most spiritual to the most material levels. Although these levels of existence differ greatly from each other in characteristics and condition, at each level there are spiritual teachers active. So there are teachers among the gods and also among humans. Indeed, at all levels of the cosmic hierarchy. And these spiritual teachers stimulate all less developed beings within their circle to expand their consciousness and are therefore called the light side of nature. These teachers have deliberately chosen to devote themselves entirely to the development of all fellow pilgrims on the often very confusing path of life, full of illusions and suffering. Their compassionate decision stems from the realization that all beings are essentially one and inseparably connected to each other. Together they are called the hierarchy of compassion. And the word hierarchy, meaning a unity of cooperation beings, made up of many degrees of development. And the word compassion indicates its characteristic. They work very closely together. They form a tight unit. They continuously pass on their wisdom to each other through all degrees of development as best as they can. And together, from high to low, they form one continuous stream of wisdom and universal love. Together, they form, as it were, an eternally flowing river of inspiration, which spreads over as large an area as possible, through every branching tributaries. They are therefore always and everywhere active, at every level of development. The messengers we know, who work among humanity, belong to this group of beings and have derived the universal thoughts they bring from it one stream of wisdom. And that stream is the common source of universal wisdom from which all world teachers have drawn. And this explains why Lao-tse, Buddha, Jesus, Plato, Zoroaster, and many other messengers brought essentially the same insights. Does this stream have an absolute beginning somewhere? No. Even the being with the noblest wisdom we can imagine has his teachers. There are always greater fields of wisdom, understanding, and ability to develop. And because there is no absolute starting point, but always a further inwards, we say that this stream of wisdom flows from the boundless, unfathomable essence of the cosmos, or symbolically speaking, from the heart of the cosmos. And by the symbol heart, we mean the hidden, the even more inner, that what lies in and behind what we can imagine to be the summit. So that means that nowhere can there be an absolute starting point or an all-known deity. For every being is a part of a still greater whole. In short, from the unfathomably deep heart of the cosmos, wisdom flows through all the intermediaries, through all the transmitters, through all the capillaries of the cosmos, which each of these compassionate beings in hierarchy of compassion being a link. Now we will zoom in on what this cooperation line of transmitters all have in common: their wisdom and compassionate motive. So what do we mean by the words wisdom and compassion? And that is not an unnecessary question, because we know that there are countless opinions and emotions around these words. Theosophy provides a clear description. Wisdom is understanding the nature of humans and all other beings, and their essential unity, because, as we mentioned earlier, the heartbeat of the one life beats in all beings. A wise person, therefore, experiences the inseparable bonds between all things. And wisdom is also understanding the coherence and structure of the cosmos, and recognizing the universal habits of consciousness, such as that everything develops from within, the process of reincarnation, and the law of cause and effect. The wise have learned to understand nature or life and apply these insights. They work completely in harmony with nature. They are in harmony with the heart of things because their motive is compassion. So next we will zoom in on the word compassion. What is compassion? Compassion is, in short, the conscious practice of the principle of unity. It is not a fleeting feeling of empathy, but you realize the ignorance and difficulties of all people and decide to help them. And for the wise, compassion is a 24/7 mindset, a 24/7 way of acting, because they realize that we are all connected in a unity without boundaries. After all beings are one in their core. And this explanation of compassion may sound grand or far removed from us, but know that consciously expressing compassion in practice is always a gradual and growing process. Compassion can be trained. And it starts with flashes of compassion, and perhaps recognizable as moments when you completely forget yourself, when the interest of others or the common good come first. Like parents who are 100% committed to their children. And those flashes of compassion can expand. Compassion cannot be imposed, but it's something that comes from within. It is a logical consequence of the fact that you are more and more able to open your minds to your own spiritual core, which therefore increasingly enlightens your thoughts and actions. Well, we have seen that everything in the cosmos is alive, that all processes in the cosmos are produced by living beings that work according to habitual patterns, according to laws, and that the cosmos is therefore not disorderly. Because the more advanced beings act more from the awareness that they are one with the cosmos, they will always act for the whole, out of selflessness. And that is why compassion is the keynote, the habitual pattern of life, the law of laws. And when you reason from unity, is helping the whole the most logical, truthful, and moreover, joyful way of life. There's no true wisdom without compassion. Both are necessary because compassion without wisdom leads to well-intended but blind actions. Without wisdom, you do not know what the consequences are for your fellow human being and yourself. Furthermore, knowledge of life without compassion leads to abuse of that knowledge. If we want to become a living expression of wisdom and compassion, we cannot do that for ourselves, but always from an intention in which the whole stands foremost central, so that what we think or do benefits the whole. In short, both compassion and wisdom can be developed wherever you are on the ladder of life. We have just spoken of the hierarchy of wisdom and compassion, which consists of all beings who are dedicated to support the whole. Within that hierarchy, there is one branch operating on earth, and that branch we call the Lords of Wisdom and Compassion. And this Lord is the necessary link in the stream from the cosmic heart towards us humans. The messages of the past and present belong to this Lord of Wisdom and Compassion. And by which names are they known in different traditions? Well, in Buddhist countries, they are called bodhisattvas. In Asian Persia, they were called Amshaspans in the solar hierarchy. In Jewish mysticism and among the Kabbalists, we find them spoken out as Bnei Elohim, the sons of the gods. In Greece and Egypt, they are called the sons of the sun. And in Islam, they are called the friends of God, the Awliya. In Central America, they are symbolically represented as the winged serpent, Quetzalcoatl. And its counterpart can be found in China in the Dragon of Wisdom. So what distinguishes messengers from everyone else? It is their view of life. They have looked behind the veils of outward existence in search of the causes of suffering. And based on that vision, they have consciously committed themselves to helping their fellow pilgrims. They have experienced unity. They offer a helping hand to those who have not yet seen these truths, whenever possible. All world teachers are part of that universal stream of wisdom and bring the same light, the same truth, in a form adapted to the times. In collaboration, they bring one universal system of thought, which we presently know as Theosophy. In conclusion, shortly said, The Lord of Wisdom and Compassion brings the stream of wisdom and compassion from the cosmic hearts to our human hearts. And the Lord fulfills a spiritual leadership role within the planet Earth. Their members are constantly active. They are our living example. So how does the Lord of Wisdom and Compassion work? And can we become as wise as the sages? We will explore these questions in the next 2 lectures. Thank you for your attention.